Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's episode of Daily Betslip. It is myself. It is Ben Heisler. We got a lot of sports to talk about. Big sports night, big sports week, big sports month, really. But we got some NBA action, some NHL action, college basketball. And our game of the night is the Phoenix Suns against the Golden State Warriors. And our topic for the day is NFL Coach of the Year, with Nick Siranni and the Eagles losing on Monday Night Football to the Commanders. Kind of opens up that Coach of the Year race a little bit more. So we're going to talk about those. And actually, both of our picks are a couple dark horse picks to win heading into week 11. Ben, what's going on?
What's happening, Ian? Good to be back. Good to be talking sports on a big sports day.
Have you bought in on the UC Irvine Anteaters, who once again 4.5-point favorites last night? They won by 1 million. Are you part of the Anteater squad yet, or no?
Can I admit something to you? I've feel like after a weekend in New York, coming back to Kansas City, I feel like I've been on a whole different level trying to catch up to sleep. So I did not stay up for the Anteaters game yesterday. In fact, very disappointed in myself falling asleep in the middle of the KU game last night, right in my own backyard. Well, technically it wasn't my backyard, but the Jayhawks are obviously 45 minutes away from me. So last night was a night to try and catch up on sleep from the city that never sleeps. So I unfortunately missed out. It is on my list of when I'm going to be just constantly awake during the night to turn into an Anteaters game. But yesterday was not the day.
That is why I fell in love with the UC Irvine Anteaters, because when you've had a bad day of betting, you can always rely on UC Irvine at that late night sweat if you need one. And they've come through for me more often than not. So
yeah, I figured that, and I would have figured based off that logic, you're a diehard Rainbow Warriors fan during college football season. Not the case.
Not as much, because I haven't had as much luck betting on those games. Also, those games are a little too late. Like UC Irvine starts at 10:30, 11 p.m. Eastern, and Hawaii games start at midnight or 1 a.m. So they're a little too late for me. UC Irvine's kind of that perfect time slot for a late night sweat, and I'm deliriously tired by the time those games end. And that's why the Twitter reaction videos I put out to those UC Irvine games, I go a little wild in those because I'm half awake. I got fired up last night. All right, let's get into some picks here. We got some community picks to get through first. A little bit of everything, including the last community pick today is going to be about a sport that we have officially never talked about on Daily Betslip. So little teaser. Look forward to that. Ben, you better have some deep insights on it, or else I'm going to be pretty upset. So
yeah. All right, we'll adjust on the fly.
All right,
I'll be ready for this one.
All right, first one though in the NBA. Let's bring up the first community pick. Sean Mitchelson at the Sox fan at 24. Always sends in some good picks into Daily Betslip. Tonight he's on Nuggets minus 0.5 in the first quarter. Minus 120. Nuggets number one in first quarter scoring average, 32.3 points at home with an 8-3 overall record. Knicks average 25.1, ranking 28th on the road with a 1-4-1 road record. And also coming off a back-to-back last night in Utah. Ben, you are a big first quarter bettor. Any thoughts on that one?
Yeah, certainly love it. Haven't had a chance to dive into too many NBA games. I do have an early first quarter play that we'll talk about in just a little bit, but he's right. The Nuggets have been kind of enigmatic to start the year. Lost some games that they really should have won, got off to some sloppy starts, and yet here they are, 13, 14 games in, with the best net rating of any team by more than 3 points in the first quarter this year. They've actually been terrific defensively. They're number 2 in offensive rating, but they are number 3 in defensive rating in the first quarter this year. So taking that into consideration against the Knicks team, like you said, on the back-to-back, little surprised to myself that I didn't notice the play, but that's probably one that I will be tailing tonight. So love the call.
Yes, and a little nugget that we found today, the Nuggets, didn't mean that pun, but it worked. Knicks haven't won in Denver since when? When was it? 2006, I think we said, or 2000?
I believe it was either 2000. It had a 6 next to it, so it was either 2006 or 2016.
It was definitely further back than that. Obviously, the Knicks, because East-West, they only play in Denver once a year, but still, it's It's been a long time, and I think it was 2009. I think it was that the Nuggets were 21.5-point favorites against the Knicks, which is a ridiculous line to see
No, I think
in
it is
an NBA game.
I think it is 2006. So
Yes.
we were right on that one. I might have to. This might be the first for me, and I might have to go and place a bet while we're doing the show live on the air.
All right, I've done that before. Go for it. All right, so yeah, that's a fun little game there in Denver tonight. Let's bring up the next community pick. This is I don't think this person sent in a pick before. Chips at Chips Picks Daily. Chips Picks. Wow. Blues 3-way money line in the NHL. That means that they have to win in regulation, is another way to say that. Since 11-8, so November 8th, I'm guessing, St. Louis is 3-1, ranking 11th in expected goals for percentage and 15th in high danger shot attempts. Bennington, 233 goals against and 938 save percentage over his last 3. I knew he was off to a little bit of a rough start. Good to see that he's getting things back together. And yeah, he has improved from his season averages. Since November 3rd, Blackhawks 32nd in Corsi percentage, expected goals for percentage, and 31st in scoring chances. The advanced analytics coming in there from Chips Picks Daily is really speaking my language.
Yeah. And anytime you get a couple mention of high danger chances, I know that's going to perk up your ears a little bit. We're actually talking about Jordan Bennington, but before the start of the show, they're going up against my Chicago Blackhawks, who have been, I believe, a league best 11-3 against the spread so far this year. They've been a really good covering team when they were expected to be just absolutely atrocious to start the year. Give a lot of credit to Kyle Davidson and their roster that they're putting together, even though they actually really do need to tank Ian. So I still think at some point in the second half, they might trade some more guys away so they can guarantee themselves a chance at one of those top tier guys in the draft this year.
Yes, they are doing a very bad job of tanking. But obviously players don't really want to tank. Players want to win as many games as possible. So sometimes it can be hard.
That's a good statement.
All right, let's bring up the next community pick here. Practical picks at practical_picks. Arizona State money line plus 175 and San Francisco pick. The San Francisco Dons taking on the Fresno State Bulldogs. I have a pick for that game. I don't have a pick for Arizona State, though. I believe someone wrote up a preview for Arizona State today. Arizona State is an underdog to VCU, the Rams. Pretty not often you would see a mid-major team, a sizable favorite. I think they're like 4.5, 5.5, 6.5 point favorites against a Power 5 team in Arizona State. So that's going to be an interesting game. VCU 2-0 on the year. Arizona State 2-1. I believe whoever wrote up the preview on BetSided, I'm going to see if I can bring it up.
Yeah, I got it right here. It's our guy, Reed Wallach, our
there you go.
college basketball czar, where you have VCU on the road as a 4.5 point favorite, like you mentioned. Small total, 133.5. Makes sense given how VCU likes to defend. And also Arizona State is not going to have Marcus Bagley, who's averaging 12.5 points. So Reed is going with the under here at 133.5. You can read the full article over at BetSided. But in essence, he's basically going to the fact that Arizona State does not handle the press well. VCU also is a team that turns the ball over a bit too much. Both of these teams are in the bottom 100 in turnover rate. So factor in neither of them can make free throws and they don't handle pressure well. That's not going to lead to a lot of scoring. So the under in play for that game. And I'm curious to get your take in a little bit about San Francisco and Fresno State, because that is a side that I am leaning towards, but I haven't been convinced either way as of yet.
Well, there you go. I'll give my pick. I'll let you know if I agree or disagree with practical picks. All right. I think we have a couple more community picks here, including one that I'm excited to get to. But first, we're going to talk from Year of the Monkey at Alfredo Sauce 42. Ben, are you a big fan of Alfredo sauce? I love Alfredo sauce.
I mean, it's like a cheesy, very kind of meh sauce. Like I feel like you put it on pasta to like hide whatever else. Like it hides seasoning. Like
you're killing me.
I'll do like a good mac and cheese. I'd much prefer that over like some sort of like creamy Alfredo pasta, which like that's just the base of the sauce.
Oh, one of my favorite meals is a chicken fettuccine Alfredo pasta. Toss a little bacon in there with it. Oh, unbelievable. But anyways, at Alfredo Sauce 42 is on a Celtics Suns moneyline parlay, a little moneyline parlay in the NBA. Obviously, the Suns taking on the Warriors in our game of the night, which we'll talk about in a little bit. Celtics taking on the Hawks, who is actually a game I think you do have a bet on as well. Do you have any thoughts on the side in that game, though?
I think Boston, anytime you're backing them, I like them to get off to a good start. I'll say that in this game. The Hawks have been much better defensively at home for whatever reason. Sometimes their offense tends to be a little bit hit or miss, and they don't get going until a little bit too late. You can do that against mediocre to below average teams where you start off, kind of inconsistent, and Trae Young is banking off shots. Boston is one of those teams that, especially in the month of November, they've gotten much better defensively. So if you get off to a slow start against Boston, that's going to be a concern. So I do like Boston to win that game. There's a crazy stat, too. I know that our guy Peter Dewey has been keeping track of it, that in losses, I think going back for the last 43 games, the Atlanta Hawks have not covered the spread in a loss, like going back.
As an underdog.
As an underdog, yes. And they are, I believe, 3.5-point dogs tonight.
Yes. That's an absolutely crazy stat. We'll see if that continues tonight. And you'll get into your pick for that game here in a little bit. But we have one more community pick for tonight, which is the one I teased about at the start of the show. PDC World Darts Championship.
Ah, shit.
Matt M. from @EndyMofro said, really want to hear your thoughts on the PDC World Darts Championship next month. Gerwin and Gerwin, an E is one name and spelled with a Y, the other name, are the top two faves. And no, they are not a law firm. It is not the law firm of Gerwin and Gerwin. The PDC World Darts Championship, I can say for sure, we have not spoke about the darts betting world before. Untapped market. We got to start handicapping darts over at BetSided. So I actually was going to try to handicap it a little bit before the show. I ran out of time, unfortunately. But what I can say is that the defending champion, I thought I had it in front of me. I think it's Gerwin. It's one of the Gerwins. I think it's Gerwin with a Y is the defending champion.
Gerwin Price,
if I'm understanding this correct. But the format of the event is confusing me as I'm trying to read it on the go here. I do have some odds. Michael Van Gerwen is the betting favorite, plus 325. Gerwin Price with a Y, plus 600. Peter Wright, 7-1. Then we got Johnny Clayton, 12-1. Michael Smith, 12-1. Dimitri Van Den Berg, 16-1. Luke Humphrey, 16-1. Josh Rock, 20-1. Rounds out the top 8. Any thoughts on the darts championship, Ben?
Yeah, I do have some thoughts. I have some hot takes on this. Blatant disrespect for the recent champion, Peter Wright. Won this event in 2022. 7-1 odds, Ian. Like, this is a guy that knows how to win at the highest level of darts. He's somebody that can lock in when you absolutely need to get a bullseye on the line. I really can't believe that 7-1 is still hanging. Do they just not expect repeat champions? In the world of darts, I think, to me, this is a mistake. I think you're going to start to see sharps get all over Peter Wright. And right now, that he's just on the wrong side here. Give me Peter Wright.
There we go. The true professional that Ben Heisler is. I toss him a darts question, and he still comes out with an answer. Yes, Peter Wright, not only the defending champ, he has won 2 of the last 3 World Dart Championships. A little disrespect there.
Has he lost a throw or two? Like, is there not enough more darts in the chamber?
He is 52. He's getting up there. And Peter Wright, I don't know if you know what Peter Wright looks like, but he looks like quite the cat. He has, at least of his Wikipedia picture, he has a red and yellow mohawk at 52 years old.
Can I ask you a question, Ian? Like, what injuries do you think come from darts? Do you think it's more likely to be like an elbow injury,
it's got to be elbow,
arm injury, or is
elbow.
It more on the elbow? Or do you think it's more so getting hit in the face with a dart and like dealing with like an eye injury?
I don't think it's that. Whoa! Sorry, I'm just looking at past world champions. Phil Taylor, what a dynasty. World darts champion from 95 to 2006, and then again from 2009 to 2013. Greatest dart player of all time, Phil Taylor.
I mean, you love to see it.
I didn't know
this is what it's all about, and when it comes to the world of darts. So I'm I'm excited for this now that it's on our radar. Like
Yes.
we have our monthly brainstorm meetings over at BetSided, maybe a little inside radio for everybody. But I mean, we clearly have to have the World Dart Championships on our radar,
Yes.
handicapping it every step of the way.
Shout out to John Part, the only Canadian world champion back in 2003. And also Scots have been on a little bit of a run here. Gary Anderson, 2015, 2016, Scottish, and Peter Wright is Scottish. But I'll give you my pick right now. Give me it's a tough call. Give me the fourth guy on the odds list here, Johnny Clayton, 12-1.
Okay. All right. I'm sticking with the defending champion at 7-1.
All right, I like it. All right, that was darts talk.
His name I already forgot.
Peter Wright.
Peter Wright. Yeah.
Yeah, he has
make
a
the
chance
right
to
choice. Make the right choice, everybody.
what do they say a dynasty is? You got to win 3 of 4. Is that a dynasty in sports? So if he wins, that's a dynasty. 3 of the last 4 years.
Yeah. I mean,
All
history's on the line here.
History is on the line at the PDC World Darts Championship. All right, that is our darts talk for Daily Bets.
Hey, it's ready to go a full hour.
Yes, let's switch over to our best bets for tonight. You have you're all basketball here. You got 2 college basketball and an NBA. Let's talk college basketball first. So why don't you start, and then I'll go to my college basketball, and then you go to your second college basketball, and then we'll tackle some NHL and NBA.
Love it. Okay, so let's start with a game that I think most people might be a bit surprised by, given how both of these teams have started off this season. You have a ranked team in Tennessee back home tonight after a pretty disappointing loss in a neutral site game in Nashville against Colorado. Tennessee lost that game by double digits, and they're going up tonight against Florida Gulf Coast. Of course, everybody remembers them as Dunk City from several years ago in the NCAA tournament. And the Eagles went into USC, beat their former coach in Andy Enfield, and beat them handedly. So this is a Florida Gulf Coast team that's looked pretty good to start the season. They're 2-1 this year. They're 20.5-point dogs on the road against Tennessee. And I got to tell you, like, after thinking this one through, I thought initially Florida Gulf Coast might be the play, but Tennessee just dominates this matchup and basically destroys Florida Gulf Coast in all the different metrics. I also looked at the results from last time out. It was really uncharacteristic for Tennessee in how they lost that game. They had a 2-point lead at halftime against Colorado, and then their offense just completely shut down. Their best player in Santiago Vescovi went 2 of 11 from downtown, 2 of 13 for the game. He's a career 40% three-point shooter. And you have a Volunteers team that ranks statistically top 24 in adjusted offense. They're top 4 in adjusted defense at KenPom. The Eagles are 195 and 224 respectively. And I think the other key reason why I like Tennessee here, Ian, is Florida Gulf Coast plays slow. And when you're an elite defensive team, that allows an opportunity to get back into your defensive sets. There's not a lot of transition basketball. And for the Volunteers, they're the best team in the country in steal percentage. So if you're playing slow and you're set on defense, all of a sudden the Volunteers are going to be able to pick up those passing lanes, get some easy buckets in transition on the other side. I think they win this one handedly. And I think the line actually should be much more than this. But given the loss or the win, I should say, for Florida Gulf Coast to USC, and Tennessee's most recent loss, I think we're getting a bit of a discount on the Volunteers. So I really do like them at 20.5 tonight.
All right, Tennessee Volunteers to cover the big spread against Florida Gulf Coast tonight. My college basketball pick here, I'm going to go with that game that was mentioned earlier by Practical Picks, and I'm with him. I'm on the San Francisco Dons over Fresno State at even money. San Francisco had a very good season last year. If you don't remember, their second leading scorer from last year is back this year, Khalil Shabazz. And Khalil Shabazz has been on fire to start the season. 15.7 points per game, 6.7 rebounds, 3 assists, 2.7 steals. San Francisco, just about every metric that you look at, ranks way higher than Fresno State. Obviously, you have to say the caveat is obviously super early in the season. So it's tough to bank too much on these stats, but 76th in effective field goal percentage. Fresno State down at 151st. San Francisco has beat Texas Southern by 13, Cal Poly by 12. Fresno State only beat Fresno Pacific, a D2 team, by 13 points, and then they lost to UC Santa Barbara by 7. So I think this Fresno State team is not very good. I'll take San Francisco on the money line. Me and a Practical Picks. We're on this one together.
All right. So I get the play on San Francisco, and obviously I was a bit surprised to see Fresno State favored in this game. My concern is that San Francisco is not shooting the three ball the way that we're accustomed to seeing them do it. Now, again, it's very early in the season, so there's still plenty of time. But I mean, that's part of what made them, a quality tournament team a season ago. And right now, the 3-point shot hasn't been falling. I don't know, Ian. Like it's a bit concerning for me to see a team that we know in San Francisco go to Fresno as a short underdog on the road. It almost kind of feels like we're walking into a trap.
That's possible. Are you saying that you're going to be? Are you going to back the Fresno State team?
I was thinking about it. I think the play that I like a little bit more is on the over at 130. I think it was 132 and a half for that matchup. To me, that's just not enough. Like you still have offenses that can move it, and if San Francisco does start hitting threes, then that's going to clear relatively easily. So I think I prefer the over if I'm going to end up taking a side. But it just kind of feels like I'm walking into it because I felt initially, why is San Francisco a short dog here? That doesn't seem to make sense.
I will say about your point about them shooting the three ball. Usually, when I see that, I assume it's a change in coaching and they come in with a little bit of a different philosophy. And I was right. I looked into it. Their head coach did leave. Todd Golden, their coach from last year, accepted a job at Florida. So now Chris Gorlufsen is now their head coach. So maybe it's just a little bit of a different philosophy running this team this year. Maybe. But also maybe it is a cause for concern. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, fair point. Again, it's a team that we've become accustomed to, and Fresno State, like you said, the level of competition they've played hasn't been impressive. But that certainly struck me initially to see them as favorites and made me think twice about going to the San Francisco side. So I think I'm going to go over here instead.
One of the things I will say for certain is that UC Irvine would destroy both of these teams by double digits. All right, you got one more college basketball play for tonight. What is it?
Yeah, I'm looking at a game that our Peter Dewey wrote up earlier today, and I'm on a different side here. He's on San Diego State, who's a 15.5-point underdog at Arkansas tonight against the Razorbacks. I prefer the under, which is set at a pretty high number at 152.5. I got to be honest with you, Ian. Like, this is an Arkansas team over the last few years, and a team that I know you know very well. From being their number one fan all throughout the NCAA tournament last year.
That's a fact.
Yeah, yep. This is no one's a bigger Arkansas Razorbacks fan than one Iain MacMillan, but this is an elite defense, like top 5 in adjusted defense in the country. And you're also talking about a South Dakota State team that's pretty well balanced, but they haven't been great. I mean, they also turn the ball over a ton. Their turnover percentage ranks 326th in all of college basketball. They also don't rebound the basketball. So unless they're making shots, I'm not sure how they hang with Arkansas. And the Razorbacks are not a good 3-point shooting team. They average 28.6% from downtown. Where they make their money is at the free throw line, where they shoot 80%. Or excuse me, is inside Arkansas, I should say. Arkansas is actually worse. Arkansas shooting 23.1%. I was looking at the wrong numbers. So that's 319th in the country. But they're very good inside, shooting 54.2% from inside the line. They're going to out physical you. They're going to out rebound you. They're 33rd in adjusted offensive efficiency. But they're just not going to beat you from downtown. And if South Dakota State is going to rely on that, and they haven't been particularly good from long range this year, I just don't know where you get to 152.5 with a really good defensive team and a team that's going to be much more physical than you. So I like the under. 152.5 just feels like far too many points. Even though South Dakota State has put up some quality numbers this year and they do play fast.
Yeah, I like that bet. I'd probably go with the under as well. I'm actually on South Dakota State to cover in that game. I think I got plus 15. So we'll see. But I certainly like the play, the under play if you're looking at the total. Joe Santier just chimed in. I just got in. What other college basketball picks were made? I like Michigan at minus 8.5. Michigan always solid in neutral sites game. I haven't looked at the Michigan game. I'll see if I can find something up here in a moment. But so far for college basketball picks, you see that one on the screen, South Dakota State, Arkansas under 52.5. I'm on San Francisco Dons to beat Fresno State. And you, Ben, your first one was Tennessee minus 20.5.
I like Tennessee minus 20.5 at home against Florida Gulf Coast. Again, I just feel like you're getting too many points for Tennessee just because of the fact that they lost last week at Colorado and USC already, Florida Gulf Coast already handed USC a loss this year. I just think Tennessee matches up exceptionally well in this matchup.
There you have it. So those are our 3 college basketball picks. Let's switch to some other sports. I got 2 picks in the NHL here, so I'll dive into those first. We were talking about Blues and Blackhawks a little bit earlier with a community pick that was on the 3-way money line for the Blues. I'm on the under in that game. Neither of these teams can shoot the puck, which is usually a good indication of the total going under. In fact, if you just look at goals per game, they are the 2 lowest scoring teams in the NHL. They're combining for only 4.91 goals per game. So right off the bat, you're looking at likely a low scoring affair tonight, 21st and 31st in shooting percentage. And Chicago will be starting who has been, I believe, their backup goaltender this year. I think he's only had 5 stars, so maybe he's going to challenge for the starting job here. Arvid Soderblom, if I pronounce that correct, 931 save percentage hitting into tonight. So I like that for an under bet as well. We got 2 goalies. If Bennington's starting tonight, I haven't seen if he's confirmed. Let's see if I can find that out. But if Bennington's playing better recently, whoever it was that sent in the pick earlier, I forget who it was, said that he has been. And Arvid Soderblom has been playing pretty good. Plus, both teams have been bad shooting-wise and scoring-wise. It is Bennington starting tonight. Then I think all of that spells an under. So I like under 6. Minus 105 is what I got between the Blues and the Blackhawks. Let's go, Arvid Soderblom.
The way in which you impeccably pronounced Sonnenblum was inspiring. And so how do I not ride that game with you based off of the way that you called it out? That's terrific.
I tried to say it the best Swedish accent I could.
Yeah, that's well done. I have some experience in the world of friendly folks from Sweden. I grew up with a lot of folks from Sweden, so.
And I went to IKEA this past weekend, so I have recent Swedish experience. How about that?
Did you get the meatballs?
Did get the meatballs. They were extremely disappointing.
I mean, what were your expectations?
Everyone told me they were like the greatest meatballs in the world. They were like subpar, if that, meatballs. I mean, maybe it's kind of cool that you can shop for furniture and then they're cheap. The mashed potatoes are pretty good.
Yeah,
the meatballs were pretty disappointing.
They're good when you need like a pick-me-up, because I can only stand searching for furniture for X amount of time, and it's like a good escape, and maybe that's what makes them taste better.
Yes, maybe that's the case. Also very cheap, to be fair. Pretty cheap dinner. All right, you got to play in the NBA. You teased it earlier. It is between the Celtics and the Hawks. What is it?
So, a bit surprising given how high this number is for 2 pretty quality defensive teams, especially in the first quarter. But I was able to get this number at under 60.5. Now, I made this bet in the interest of full transparency before I knew that Marcus Smart and Malcolm Brogdon were going to be out. But I still think it's in play. Atlanta comes into this game as the 3rd best team in the NBA in first quarter defensive rating at home. Only the 76ers and the aforementioned Nuggets that we talked about earlier on in the show have been better. But what's also interesting about Atlanta is we all know about the firepower that they have with Trae Young and DeJounte Murray and DeAndre Hunter. But they also can't score in the first quarter at home. So you're starting to see more lower totals early on before eventually the offense starts to wake up. Atlanta ranks 5th worst in first quarter offensive rating. So you have an elite defensive team, and you have a very good or a very below average to near the bottom of the barrel in offensive ranking. Boston, you kind of throw their numbers out. They're elite offensively wherever they go. But what I like about them in this matchup is that they're still very good defensively in the first. We're talking about a top 10 team in first quarter defensive rating. And I've also noticed that as October has moved into November, their defensive rating overall has become much better. They're starting to round back into shape and look closer to the team that was coached by Ime Udoka a season ago, where they're just much more physical and they kind of beat you down a little bit. They kind of felt like they were playing a little bit more finesse in the beginning portion of the year. 60.5 is one of the higher totals on the board, Ian, in the first quarter tonight. And given what we know about Atlanta and their struggles in the first, and given what we know about Boston's ability to play really good defense early on, I like the under here. So first quarter under 60.5 between Boston and Atlanta tonight. Just think it's too many points.
All right, I like it. Another little first quarter bet, the Ben Heisler special.
That's right.
All right, we got one more best bet here. I'm going back to the NHL, and I'm going to go with an underdog bet. I'm going to take the LA Kings plus 125 against the Edmonton Oilers here. Kings, I think, being extremely undervalued in the spot, and dare I say, I think the Oilers are being overvalued. Edmonton not off to as strong of a start as you'd think, looking at their 9-7 record. 23rd in Corsi percentage tonight. Kings coming in at 6th. And I love some good Corsi percentage. Kings defense much better this year too. 8th in expected goals against. Well positioned to slow down this Oilers offense. And Edmonton all the way down at 26th in expected goals against. Once again, it's been the same story for the Oilers for a decade, it feels like. They can't play hockey in their own end. They stink. They can score all the goals they want with Connor McDavid, but they get in their own end and they give up just as many goals themselves. So I'll back the road underdog here in the LA Kings plus 125.
Like it. Edmonton has had some issues at home this year. When I was going through some of the best odds on the board today, really struggled to find some consistency at home. On the road, they've been much better. And that sets up well for a Kings team that I believe is 3-1 their last 4 games.
Yep, absolutely. All right, so those are our best bets. We are going to have picks for the game of the night, Suns Warriors, in a little bit, but let's recap our bets so far. I'm on the under 6 between the Blues and the Blackhawks. The Kings plus 125 are my 2 NHL bets. By the way, there is another NHL bet that I have for tonight, but you got to go over to BetSided and check out the NHL best bets article if you want my third one. And I'm also college basketball. I got San Francisco even money against Fresno State. Ben, you're on Tennessee minus 20.5 against Florida Gulf Coast, under 152.5 between South Dakota State and Arkansas, and first quarter under 60.5 between the Celtics and the Hawks. So there you have it. Those are our best bets for tonight. Like I said, we got one for Suns Warriors coming up, but first let's talk NFL Coach of the Year. As of right now, after the Eagles' perfect season lost on Monday night, the latest Coach of the Year odds, Nick Siranni coming in as a favorite, plus 320. You got Brian Dable and Kevin O'Connell next up at plus 320 and plus 360. Mike McDaniel of the Dolphins, 7-1. And then Robert Saleh, 11-1. Pete Carroll, 12-1. And that's pretty much the contenders, because then there's a huge drop-off. And then you got John Harbaugh, Sean McDermott, Mike McCarthy. Those guys aren't going to win it. So it's basically between these 6 final coaches. Where are you putting your money on, Ben?
I wrote about this actually last week over at BetSided, and there's been a little bit of changes since then. But Ian, I don't know how you can't make a compelling case for Pete Carroll here. And this is somebody that I liked a week or so ago at plus 800, but then they lose in a close game against Tampa Bay in Germany. And now all of a sudden you get a discount on the odds at plus 1,200. I got to tell you, man, this might set up better for Carroll than almost everybody else, because the Seahawks have a very good shot to hang in that division, make a postseason spot, get themselves into the playoffs with Geno Smith. Their defense has made a sizable turnaround. Over the last 4 weeks, they've been top 5 in opponent yards per play allowed. And this was a team that in the first 3 weeks of the season had given up, 30 plus points, 40 plus points. You think about that game that they had in Detroit against the Lions. It hasn't been the toughest division in the NFL that, maybe most expected, other than the AFC West. And that certainly hasn't held up to that end of the bargain as well. But I mean, right now you're talking about an offense that, heading into this week ranked 4th in points per game, 2nd in points per play, 4th in yards per play. And then they were converting top 5 in the NFL on third down. I mentioned their improvement on defense as well. And Kenneth Walker right now remains the favorite to win Offensive Rookie of the Year. Everything is working in favor of Carroll. Can keep in mind that all their draft picks this year have also been really playing well. So if Seattle continues to play at this level, hang in games, and continue to surprise teams, because they're doing it on both sides of the ball, and because their schedule and their final 7-8 games sets up awfully nice for them, I'm not sure how Pete Carroll isn't deserving of this award, given how much they've accomplished and where they were supposed to be. I think he sets up perfectly here.
Yeah, it has been really funny because over the past couple of years when the Seahawks struggled a little bit, everyone was asking the question, who's causing the issue here? Is it Russell Wilson or is it Pete Carroll? And the large majority of people thought it was Pete Carroll. And now here we are, 2022. Russell Wilson is struggling to say the least with the Broncos, and Pete Carroll is coaching what looks to be a playoff-bound Seahawks team, quarterbacked by Geno Smith. So you got to hand it to Pete Carroll because he's getting up there in age. He's in his mid-70s.
Yeah,
And he's
early to
still
mid
crushing it.
70s. But one of those guys too that you get to that age and you look like you're 10 years younger. I hate those people. Like that's not going to be me.
His energy level too. He's still running around like he's 30 years old out there.
Yeah, good for him, man. Coaching will wear you out and it will age you, and it seems to kind of have the opposite effect on him.
Must be all that gum that he chews. All right, my pick. I'm going to go with the other somewhat long shot here. Robert Saleh, 11-1, the coach of the Jets. All these teams that are surprising this year are getting praised by the pundits out there. Ooh, the Giants looking great. Ooh, the Seahawks, as you just mentioned, Ben, looking great. Nobody is giving credit to the New York Jets. I don't know why everyone's like, oh yeah, but the Jets will jet. They'll start losing games here soon. No, I think this Jets team is legitimately a good team. You want to look at their defensive numbers. Their defense has been dominant this season. 4th in opponent yards per play, 3rd in opponent yards per pass, 5th in opponent yards per carry. 8 as a team, they're 8th in net yards per play. This is a guy who at the start of the season, I think when they lost in week 1 to the Ravens, said that he's going to take receipts about people trashing on the Jets. And everyone made fun of him. And now look at them. They're in a great spot. I don't know why he hasn't gotten the respect that he deserves, because I think he's had less to work with than a lot of these other coaches. Like even heading into the year, some people kind of picked Giants to maybe be a borderline playoff team. Nobody was picking this about the Jets. And I think they might win a few games coming up. I think they have a winnable game against the Patriots. Then they play the Bears. They got a couple tough tests on the Vikings and the Bills, who, to be fair, they already beat the Bills once. And then they have the Lions, Jaguars, Seahawks, Dolphins to finish out the year. Maybe a little battle there on New Year's Day between two potential Coach of the Year candidates between the Jets and Seahawks there. But yeah, Robert Saleh, we got to give this guy some credit here. At 11-1, I think he's a pretty good long shot bet right now.
Yeah, I certainly can't argue with it. I still would like to see a little bit more success from their offense. And they were getting that when Breece Hall was healthy. That was another dimension to that team that I think has kind of been lost in the conversation. I will say this, though, because even though he doesn't necessarily deserve it, I think if they go out and beat Bill Belichick in New England this week, you'll see Robert Saleh's odds skyrocket.
Yes, so I think that is a hurdle he has to get over, I think,
yes,
for sure.
So, and given the way that they lost to the Patriots earlier this year in New York, which a lot of folks might have seen coming, and Zach Wilson can just look terrible in that game, but if they make adjustments and if they're able to handle the Patriots in New England, which, yeah, it's still a tough place to play even without Brady there. But I think that's going to completely change the narrative for Robert Saleh. And I would tell you that if you believe he's the guy and he can make a run, I would bet him now before this week.
Yeah, and so they're at 6-3 right now. Let's say the assumption that they only need your team needs to win 10 games to make the playoffs. So they need 4 wins. Beat the Patriots and Bears, Lions, Jaguars later in the season. There's 4 wins right there. I think that this Patriots game coming up, I think, is the pivotal game for the Jets this season. So there you go. We're on the 2 kind of dark horses out of the guys who are still kind of contending for the award for Coach of the Year. Like I said earlier, the favorites, obviously, Siranni, plus 120, Dable, Kevin O'Connell, and then Mike McDaniel.
There's some, and McDaniel, I think, deserves some recognition for what he's accomplished in Miami as well. I almost feel like the results of the players that they brought in, like you might get front office of the year in Miami as opposed to coaching because of the move for Tyreek Hill, and so on and so forth. But I mean, there's also a couple coaches on this list, Ian, that aren't getting any recognition whatsoever. John Harbaugh sitting there at 50-1 or 60-1. If Baltimore ends up possibly running the table, getting the number 1 seed, he's certainly going to get recognition. Mike Vrabel, I know he won it last year, and you're not typically going to give a coach a back-to-the-back coaching award, but they have nothing on offense. And all of a sudden, this is the best defense in football at stopping teams on 3rd down, and they're now top 5 in yards per play on defense over the last several weeks. Like, they've made their turnaround this year defensively. And then, of course, Andy Reid. Like, all he does is win and become the the number one team in the AFC, and neither of these guys are going to get any consideration. They're all hanging around at 100-1. So I don't know what changes there, but it's hard for me not to look at those guys too as worthwhile candidates in the mix this year as well.
I would say, and we do got to move on to game of the night here. But the last thing I would say is be careful of betting on Brian Dable right now. Giants' schedule is sneaky, kind of tough to end the year. They still got to play the Eagles twice. They have another game against the Cowboys. Lions game isn't a lock for a win either. The Commanders look great on Monday night. They have to play them twice, and then they have to play the Vikings too. So the Giants' toughest part of their schedule is coming up, and if they lose, 4 of those games, then I think he kind of gets taken out of Coach of the Year status. I would think maybe, but we'll see. Let's switch to game of the night here. It is the Phoenix Suns. It is the Golden State Warriors. These two teams have already played once this season. Phoenix won by about 1 million points approximately. Golden State obviously been next to the Lakers, the most disappointing team in the NBA this year. Would you say they're up there?
Certainly up there. Yeah, it's hard to make a case against them given the type of talent that they have on that team.
So yeah, let's talk about this game. I believe the Suns are slight favorites. I should have this up in front of me. I want a player prop, so that's what I'm going to focus on. But Ben, why don't you give me your best bet for the game of the night here?
All right. So right now, looking at the total for this game, it's currently at where did it go? The total is at 227, and we're looking at a spread for the Phoenix Suns. Despite their dominant win, Ian, they're short dogs at home, anywhere between 1 and 2 points, depending on what sportsbook you look at. I'm going for a very specific play in this matchup, and that's to take the Suns money line in the second quarter. I was talking about this with our NBA guru Peter Dewey off air before we went on today, because we're trying to go through all the different ways in which Golden State has had their issues this year. And the biggest component of it is when Steph Curry is off the floor, they're dog crap. Like they don't shoot well, they don't defend well, they really don't do anything well until Steph comes back on the court. Kind of reminds me of last year with Nikola Jokic in Denver, where when Jokic was on the court, the Nuggets were amongst the best teams in the league, and he was holding everything together. But the moment he leaves, Denver just completely fell apart. They're one of the worst adjusted offense and defensive teams in the NBA. But if you look at Curry's rotation minutes, he kind of goes out usually around 2 minutes or so left in the first quarter and comes back at about the 6 or 7 minute mark. So we're talking about like a full 5-6 minutes in the second quarter where you have the Golden State Warriors, who are bottom 5 in net rating in the second quarter. You have Phoenix, who's top 10 in net rating. And we've already seen consistently all year that they're terrible without Steph Curry on the court. So this leads right into that dynamic. That leads right into why that metric makes plenty of sense. And you can basically get them for almost even money at -105. So it's very specific. You got to wait through the first quarter. So it's going away from what I typically like to play on these first quarter plays. But give me the Phoenix Suns money line, second quarter at -105 when Steph Curry is not going to be on the court for almost half of it.
I love it. I think that's a very smart handicap. I like that quite a bit. Suns second quarter money line -105. Like I said, I'm going with a player prop. My NBA betting, I keep it very simple. And I love to do it with rebounds. I just try to fade a bad rebounding team, and that's what I'm going to do here. DeAndre Ayton over 9.5 rebounds. I got to the +102. I think the odds have worsened a little bit since then. I think they're like -110 now, but still, I would like it for that. He had 9 rebounds against the Warriors in their last game. And that was when he only played 25 minutes. He got yanked because it was such a blowout, which is always a danger when you're taking the over on player props. And if it turns into a blowout, it's sometimes hard to hit these props. So I hope the game's a little bit closer. Ayton can stay on the floor. And like I said, Warriors can't rebound, 28th in rebounding percentage this season. So if Ayton got 9 rebounds in 25 minutes, I would, if he does it at the same rate, he plays 5 more minutes, plays even just 30 minutes, I'm sure he can grab a 10th. So I will take DeAndre Ayton over 9.5 rebounds between the Suns and Warriors.
Yeah, like it quite a bit. I'd be curious to know what his double-double odds are. So, that might be one that you can parlay together into a little 2-for-1. Because if you think he's getting over 9.5, then the double-double is in play, and you might be able to lower those odds together.
All right, I like it. That's probably worth a look. So there you have it. That is, I'm actually going to see if I can find that really quick. I have double odds here. Player, nope, don't know where to find it. I'm sure it's around somewhere there. All right, that is our show. Thank you all so much for watching. Like the video, give us a subscribe. Best of luck with your bets tonight. Ben, any final thoughts?
Two final thoughts. The community is
that's right.
The community is riding with the Phoenix Suns tonight. They've seen enough from Golden State to make them want to go the other way. They have taken the better team, who may or may not be without Chris Paul, which is part of the reason that Phoenix is currently a short underdog tonight. So the community is at Suns +1. So we all have different bets going into the game tonight. And then one final thought. I thought you'd enjoy this. A quote from Broncos head coach Nathaniel Hackett. Quote, "Somebody's got to win this game," discussing their matchup against the 2-7 Las Vegas Raiders. Yep, this game's ending in a tie, isn't it?
Yeah, I was just going to say, well, yeah, not necessarily ties do exist in the NFL. So, yeah, I now might want to bet on the tie. Just because that would be, yeah, I feel like he just cursed this game to end up in a tie.
Also,
the most boring tie of all time.
Daniel Hackett doesn't know the rules in the NFL in his fourth season.
Correct.
The jokes continue to write themselves.
Yes. And I will say about the community pick, thank you for reminding me about that. Community's been hot. They won again last night, 2-0 on the week, the community. And I want to say they're like something like over the last 3 weeks, they got to be something like 10-5, 10-4, 10-3. I don't know. They've been hot lately. They were on Kansas last night. They were on Washington on Monday, both winners. So yeah, maybe it's a good time to back the community and take the Suns tonight.
All right. Well, I mean, I'm kind of with the community. I'm taking the Suns in the second quarter. Maybe I'll ride with you, community. I certainly like where you guys are going and stay high.
And the line has actually, since we started the show, the line has actually moved a point. So you can actually get at a better line now at +2. So there you have it. All right. Thank you all so much for watching. Best of luck with your bets tonight. Gambler bless. I'll actually be gone tomorrow. So this is my last going to Canada, so no daily bet slip for me, but the daily bet slip will go on. It'll be Peter and Donovan going live tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern. And be sure to check out the early read as well, which went live yesterday for Reed Wallach's best college football picks for this weekend. All right, that's enough from us. Have a good night, and I'll talk to you next week.